All right, welcome to Armchair Sports Talk. Today we're talking about the AFC South. This is a 10-minute topic where we'll talk about each team in the AFC South. We're going to look at projected win totals and identify at least one fantasy player that's worth watching on each of the teams this season. All right, so let's get to it. The AFC South, we're going to start from the bottom to the top. In my opinion, this division is going to be pretty competitive. It's not going to be very exciting. There's some actually pretty good defenses here, and that's not what you want in the NFL. You want scoring, and you want fast-paced play, and then, of course, you have the AFC South to contend with. So all these win totals are projected at 8 or higher, so they're letting you know that home field advantage is going to make a lot of difference, and just really going to come down to injuries. So predictions are nothing more than wild, educated guesses. So we'll start with our guess that the Titans aren't going to be that good. The Titans, in my opinion, overachieved last year. They didn't really do too much to get better. I mean, their biggest acquisition was a college wide receiver converted to quarterback for the Miami Dolphins, and now they brought him in to back up their first-round pick in Marcus Mariota. So that tells me a lot. They are concerned that Mariota isn't developing the way they like, and they're kind of grasping at straws, in my opinion. I think that they just couldn't draft a quarterback in the draft and get away with it from Mariota's standpoint, just team chemistry. There's just too many moving pieces to try to really address the problem. So I think they brought in a capable backup in Tannehill. I think he's a really good backup, actually, to motivate him. And if that doesn't work, then they just move on. But if we're looking at the Titans and we're unsure about their quarterback position and they may be taking a step backwards, that always puts me on their wide receiver instead of their quarterback or their running back in a defensive conference. So, defensive division. Corey Davis is the guy. He brings some consistency. They seem to like him. He's a decent wide receiver. Until they bring in another big name, big talent, or spend some good draft capital on wide receivers, I think Corey Davis is going to get his opportunity to produce for the Titans, at least this season. So, we'll see what happens next. But he's the consistent guy at the wide receiver position. A lot of people might be high on Derrick Henry because he had a great end of 2018, but he's a little too sporadic. He's not involved in the passing game, and their coordinator has moved on. So I'm not sure if that was Vrabel's call, the current still head coach of the Titans, or the coordinator who's now with the Packers. But I'm a little concerned there with Derrick Henry. He's supposed to be in a timeshare. I know Deion Lewis is good both at catching the ball and he can run between the tackles when need be, even though he is a little smaller. So I'm not too big on a possible timeshare when I can have the lead wide receiver who's going under the radar. So I'm not huge fan of the Titans. Their projected win total of 8, I would lean towards the under. I think they're more of a 6-10 team if I had to guess, and that allows us to move on to our next team, which is the Jaguars. It was a coin flip for me between the Jaguars and the Texans, not literally, but figuratively, and that coin came up where the Jaguars were going to finish towards the bottom. We like the Jaguars' acquisition of Nick Foles. Some people know him as Big Dig Nick from a Super Bowl performance and his performance in the playoffs, so good for him. I hope he has a good time in Jacksonville. I think he's a decent quarterback, but I don't have faith in the Jaguars coaching staff from an offensive standpoint. I think that they are a good team, but it's mainly because of defense. I'm going to list some of the players. They still have Calais Campbell. They still have Jalen Ramsey. They have A.J. Boye. He's a really good cornerback opposite Jalen Ramsey because they're going to try to pick on him, but he is actually probably in the top 15 of cornerbacks, just based off of his body of work, and he's a young veteran. So I think the Jaguars are going to be good on the defensive side, which means they don't need to do as much on the offensive side. And if you remember, they want to run the ball with Leonard Fournette. They don't have the big names behind him anymore in acquiring Carlos Hyde and making sure T.J. Yeldon could spell Fournette on passing downs. So we think that they're going to give the ball to Fournette a lot, but he's with his injury history and everything. I don't want to tout Leonard Fournette. There's a little too much risk going on there for me. So I'll look more towards the wide receiver core. Marquise Lee's out for week 1. It looks like he has an injury that crept up and that was unexpected. So with him being banged up, D.D. Westbrook's going to get his time to shine. And then I'll also mention DJ Chark, just because I like the DJ Chark do. I have kids. And D.D. Westbrook is going to be our play, but DJ Chark could also get some time. He's a pretty big wide receiver. He's shown some potential, but he's a little buried on the depth chart. So I'm concerned if Marquise Lee comes back and they're in playoff contention, they're going to roll with their veterans over the DJ Chark do. D.D. Westbrook is our player to watch, and the Jaguars 8-win total. I want to say they're going to go over. I think they're a 9-7 team. It'll probably come down to tiebreakers between them and the Texans. They always play each other competitively. Jaguars start off their season rough. They play the Chiefs. They're underdogs, but they get to be at home. And matchups like that aren't going to help them out. So I think that they can get on a roll, but a 9-7 is a pretty fair prediction for them, I'd say. And they'll be right there fighting for a playoff spot, depending if this shakes out with the tiebreakers the way I think it might. Let's go to the Houston Texans. Again, they could just as easily be flip-flop with the Jaguars, but the Texans have an 8.5 projected win total. I think that they go over it as well. I really do think 9-7 is the final for Jaguars Texans when all is said and done. Just comes down to tiebreakers. On the Texans, you have Will Fuller, Kiki Kuti, DeAndre Hopkins, Lamar Miller, and they brought in Duke Johnson. All of these players are capable of catching the ball. So when you have a lot of weapons and you're trying to figure out who do I play, who do I like, maybe look at the quarterback. They spent a little money trying to strengthen their offensive line in free agency. Deshaun Watson was getting sacked a lot. I wouldn't exactly say it's all the offensive line's fault. He did tend to hold onto the ball a little longer. And why wouldn't you? You're Deshaun Watson. You can make plays with your legs. You can extend plays. And we've seen some remarkable things from him in his short time in the NFL. But yet I haven't heard much said about him. So he is in a tough division with defenses that can play well. But with Deshaun Watson having all these weapons in competitive games, being able to run with his legs, there's no reason why Deshaun Watson can't be our player to watch. So we haven't said enough quarterbacks. I think Deshaun Watson is worthy of where he's going currently in fantasy drafts, and also maybe a few more spots up. But, if we're going to make some decisions on some of these quarterbacks, and then our next players, our next team is the Colts, and their quarterback situation is a little murky with some possible injury news. Let's go ahead and lock up the quarterbacks that we know are currently healthy with a lot of upside. So the Texans, I do like Deshaun Watson. If he's able to take a nice step forward, maybe not hold onto the ball so much, some better designed plays, and the strengthening of the offensive line, they have a little more upside, in my opinion, with the 8.5 win total. So I think 9-7, even 10-6 is in the cards for the Texans. The reason why I'm a little hesitant on them at 9-7 or 10-6 is because of their division with the Colts. So the Colts there with a 10-game win total, I want to push. I want to say push so bad, but I've avoided doing that so far. Let's keep it going. The Colts 10-game win total, I got to say it again to make myself choose a side. 11-5 is rough, and 9-7 is a little low. So I'll go 9-7. Andrew Luck's battling injury right now. 10 games is a little high for someone who has the potential of missing a whole season. I know that was with the shoulder, and now we're talking about leg injury, but there's some concern there, and I think that they'll be okay. But if forced to choose, I would take the 9-7 route or under 10 games. So I do like the Colts if healthy, and Marlon Mack is going to be their strength. So if they're favored to win like they're supposed to, Marlon Mack's going to get a lot of work. We saw that when they played the Texans in the playoffs. Once they got up comfortably, you didn't hear much from T.Y. Hilton, Eric Ebron. I believe Jack Doyle was injured at that time. But, all of their pass-catching, playmaking options, they were second fiddle, if you will, to Marlon Mack controlling the clock and just dominating line of scrimmage. They bring back a lot of the same talent and players, the same mindset. So let's go ahead and put Marlon Mack in there and hope that they're able to be favorite in their games like this win total projects. And let's go through the Colts acquisitions here really quick. They signed speedy receiver Paris Campbell. They brought in Devin Funchess, who is like a tight end. He played tight end in college at Michigan. And, the Colts do like running 2 tight end sets. So now they can kind of have a third tight end out there in Devin Funchess. And I think Andrew Luck's going to have himself some large targets to hit between Doyle healthy now, Eric Ebron back, and Devin Funchess as their third wide receiver with the speedy T.Y. Hilton and Paris Campbell. All these weapons point to Andrew Luck having a good season if healthy. So the Colts will be a fun team to watch in this division, and I'm actually really looking forward to their matchup with the Jaguars because they have a lot of matchup problems and concerns, and the Jaguars have some really good defensive players. So I really am looking forward to the Jaguars, Texans, and Colts really muddying the waters in this AFC South division. So looking forward to that, but all these teams have good defenses. And just to recap, we have the Titans projected at under 8 wins. We have the Jaguars right at 9-7, Texans right at 9-7, and the Colts also at 9-7. We're hedging our bets here. We're predicting that the injuries on the Colts with Andrew Luck and his nagging leg injury will possibly flare up here and there. And then our players to watch are Corey Davis on the Titans, D.D. Westbrook on the Jaguars, Deshaun Watson on the Texans, and Marlon Mack on the Colts. So that's my time on the AFC South side, and this has been Sterling with Armchair Sports Talk. Thanks for watching.